It's an exciting time in Pittsburgh as Erik Karlsson has given new life and new hope to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Hunter Hodies of Locked On Penguins is here to discuss that and all things Penguins as they prepare to start the 2023-2024 NHL season.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And you can now find us on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On NHL. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show a familiar face for Locked On NHL viewers and a familiar voice for listeners, Hunter Hodies of Locked On Penguins. And Hunter, exciting times in Pittsburgh. It seems like the trade for Erik Karlsson has just given a lot of juice to this organization. Talk to me about what a difference psychologically, emotionally, this move has made for this team this offseason.
Yeah, I think it's breathed some new life into the fan base heading into the year. You get a difference maker like that on the team, it opens up a whole bunch, I think, of possibilities for this team this year. And for once, Kris Letang doesn't have to do it all himself on the back end. I mean, when Gonchar was there, but that was toward the end of his career, Letang had someone there to help him, but I don't think he had someone this good. You know, Erik Karlsson's going to be going to the Hall of Fame, I think, someday. He's one of the best defensemen on the planet. And the fact that they didn't have to give up anything to get him, it was the classic trade all your bad players for one good player trade. And now you have him and he's playing, 1B type minutes, and he's playing out there with Evgeni Malkin, and he's already had some really nice plays on the power play. He's going to make such a huge difference for this team this year. I think for the first time in quite a while, I think a good chunk of the fan base is excited for a season to start. And I know last season didn't go according to plan, but with all the moves they've made, not even just Karlsson, I think everyone is just excited to see how this goes. And for Karlsson alone, having him out there on the power play, opening up that possibility with him and Letang and Crosby and Malkin, it worked really well in the dress rehearsal against Buffalo. You hope that continues in the regular season. And then at 5-on-5, he makes plays with the puck that most defensemen in this league can't. So, the players are super excited. The fans are super excited. And I know the front office is super excited as well.
Now, one thing we did see in that preseason finale, Sidney Crosby dropping the gloves in a preseason game. Talk to me about what happened and what does this say about the emotional state of this team?
Yeah, it looked like Kris Letang, one of the Sabres players, went after him behind the net. And, Sid and Tanger have been close for so many years. And he didn't like it, went after Peyton Krebs, dropped the gloves, and wasn't really much of a fight. I think it was just kind of a little bit of a tussle. Sid, I think, won it, if you want to call it that. But you don't really see Sid get that fired up even during the regular season for a fight. And the fact that he did it during a preseason game, I think just showed the team that, if he is needed to, he can stick up, for a teammate. It's not the person that you want sticking up, obviously. God forbid he breaks his hand or his wrist in a fight. But, it was still at least interesting. I wouldn't say interesting, but it was, I guess, good to see that there's going to be some, pushback, I guess, in a way from the Penguins this year. I'm not really a believer in fighting in today's NHL. And anyway, that's probably going to get some people mad at me for saying that. But at least there, I understand why Sid went after Peyton Krebs, because going after Letang, they've been buddies for so long. And everything Letang went through this past year, I think not just Sid. If something happens to Tanger this year and someone goes after him on a hit, I think you'll see everyone on the team, make a stand just because of how important he is and just how much he's been through. I think it'll be the same a little bit for other players that other teams go after them, but for Letang specifically, that's one of Sid's guys and he's going to stand up when needed. It's just, don't have to do it in a preseason game. God forbid he got hurt. Thank God he didn't.
All right. So the question about the Penguins last year, the two big questions were depth and goaltending. I know they did some things to address the depth, but as the season is getting ready to begin, do you feel confident in the depth and the goaltending heading into this year?
The depth, I do think the bottom six is a bit better, at least defensively. Offensively, well, we can have that discussion anytime. We can probably go for an hour or two on that. At least the bottom six has an identity heading into the year. They're not going to hopefully allow a lot of goals in their own end. Now, will they score? We'll have to see. Hopefully, maybe someone like Noah Chari or Matt Nieto will impress. And if Jeff Carter can have like a renaissance type year in his final year of his contract, that would be good. I would love to see Drew O'Connor have a really good year. But there's a player that, has made the opening night roster, it looks like. Jansen Harkins. He joined the team this past week. There's, I think, some untapped potential there. He tore up the AHL last year in Winnipeg's Manitoba team, 50 points in 44 games. Underlyings are really solid for AHL. NHL numbers aren't as good, but this week he showed to me that I think he's an NHL player and he could potentially provide some depth scoring for this team. If he and O'Connor can be really good there and maybe redeems Zahorna, they could score maybe a few more goals than some people expect. As for the goaltending, though, I want to see Tristan Jarry stay healthy. I think that's the biggest thing. I thought he looked fine during the preseason. Not the greatest in the dress rehearsal. He had one play that reminded me of the Islanders series in Game 5 where he gave the puck away to Josh Bailey, and I still want to just remove that from my memory. This looked a little similar, not as bad, but still pretty bad. Still want him to clean up that part of his game and just make the saves that he's supposed to make. I want to see that consistency. I want to see him stay healthy. If he can do both those things, I think he can give them at least average goaltending this regular season.
Now, Tuesday night, it will be the season opener for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they're going up against the Chicago Blackhawks, which will be the NHL debut of Connor Bedard. Bedard versus Crosby. I know the NHL did this on purpose, but what is there any additional pressure on the Penguins being in that first game for this generational talent?
I think, you want to get off to a good start. I don't think it matters who the opponent is. If the opponent has Connor Bedard, if it has Connor McDavid, if it has Austin Matthews, so on and so forth. You just got to get off to a good start. And obviously, the spotlight's going to be on Bedard versus Crosby. That opening face-off's going to be pretty fun. And I know Connor Bedard was joking about, if I make the team. Well, yeah, you've made the team, sir. You were going to make the team well before you said that. But, it's exciting, even though the Blackhawks aren't going to be good this year, I don't think. There's no, what's the word I want to use? I don't think there's like a bye week game for the, I'm making comparison to the NFL. There's no like a bye game in the NHL. You still have to show up and play up to the team that you're playing. And even though the Blackhawks aren't going to be good, they're still going to be motivated to win this game and every game this year, especially this one with Connor Bedard's debut. It's going to be a lot of fun. PPG Paints Arena is going to be sold out, and I'm excited to see how he does. He's been a freak show during the preseason. Curious to see how Mike Sullivan defends against him, which pairing he uses. Is it the Letang one? Is it the Karlsson one? Is he going to put Set out there against him every shift? It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm super excited to be at the arena to just see how it goes.
Should be interesting. All right, real quick, what is the key for the season for the Pittsburgh Penguins this year?
The key for the season, I think just having, it's so cliche, but having the top six stay healthy. If they can do that, if Kris Letang and Erik Karlsson can perform as expected, this team should make the playoffs. I mean, I have them as a playoff team this year. If this team is built to score, and if they can do that, this team will make it. I think even with average goaltending to maybe even a little below average, I still think that could be good enough to get in. But that's the main key I'm looking for. If you want to back up, I think the other main key is just Tristan Jarry staying healthy. He needs to stay upright. He needs to stay consistent. He just signed a massive contract. He needs to show that he is capable of being a number one goaltender in the NHL. He's shown it before, but he's been banged up the last year and a half. It's time to be more consistent, especially now that you're making over $5 million per year. So I'll give you 2 on that one.
Fair enough. Hunter, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
So you can find the Locked On Penguins podcast wherever you get podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, SiriusXM. I'm one of the co-hosts on there. Patrick Damp is my other wonderful co-host. We have episodes Monday through Friday. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodies, and we'll have our season preview episode up on Monday before we preview the opener on Tuesday against the Hawks.
All right, Hunter, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. The NHL season is finally here. Will the Vegas Golden Knights reign supreme again? I love the NHL, and I know you do too, and that's why I want to tell you about Sleeper. Sleeper is my go-to platform for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you have the chance to win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy. The NHL has never been more exciting than it is now, with players like McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, and Makar. And simply all you have to do is select more or less based on the stats such as goals, assists, points, saves, and more. Yes, you heard me, hockey fans. Sleeper offers 100 times payouts. So start paying attention, make the right picks, and you could win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details.